someone grabbed you out of your chair right now and said you have to give a 1-hour speech on any topic of your choice as long as it was informative and they would pay you $10,000, what would your speech be about? Story 1: Hospice. I mostly do admissions, which involves talking about hospice for over an hour. I feel confident I could depress the audience to sleep informatively. Story 2: The difficulty of balancing combat versus roleplay in TTRPGs and how to better incorporate players into RP who might be new to it or a bit shy. Edit for spelling. Story 3: ADHD, being understudied in women and the large impacts it places on women's hormones. Update part 2 posted some more info below. I apologize if the wording is wacky. I woke up with a migraine. Story 4: As an autistic person, let me just say for you, the day you had to give an impromptu presentation on a topic of your choice for an hour and make it actually be informative was one of the most stressful days of your life, but for me, it was Tuesday. Story 5: Proper fitting bras, the science behind certain materials, breast anatomy, and what styles fit body types, the importance of a sports bra, and which type for why activities. Story 6: How to buy a car. Not just how to negotiate the purchase price of vehicle. In fact, the beginning of my speech would focus on how that's missing the forest from the trees, but how to negotiate the price and how rebates work, what advertisements mean, more information about trade-ins than anyone probably wants, how financing works, how leasing works, how dealerships work, how salesmen pay works, how warranties work, what finance managers are, why you get shuttled around during the process, why the process takes so long. All of it. In fact, I hope an hour is enough. By the end, you'll get paid the $10K just to shut up. Story 7: Scalp microbiome and the heresy of the current hair care industry. Opening statement: shampoo is 100 years old and was never supposed to be used more than once a month. Story 8: Hearing impaired people and the wrong stigma: deaf and dumb. I've battled my entire life proving that I'm intelligent, and hearing loss has zero effect on cognitive abilities. Story 9: Geocaching. ID, talk about it, tell some personal stories, ramble about some of the places I've been, and then cash the check and prepare for my next adventure. Story 10: Gilligan's Island. Breakdown of each character. Analysis of why their repeated attempts fail. Philosophical question of whether they should want to be rescued. Story 11: Evolutionary algorithms. Their background, efficacy, a few approaches to make them more optimal, and how to apply them to swarms of UAVs and MAVs for self-evolving attack behavior. Story 12: Having dogs, fostering dogs, and training dogs, or gardening. But I feel like no matter how much I learn in that arena, there's always so much more to learn. So probably focus on invasive plants and how to plant native to better support local ecosystems. Story 13: The late history of the Habsburg Empire and how its disintegration set the stage for World War II. Most of the audience will likely be asleep before I even got to World War I, making it anxiety-free. Story 14: Growing roses. Big ones, small ones, red ones, pink ones, scented ones, unscented ones, old-fashioned roses, crappy growing roses, grow like a weed roses, handle the cold roses, handle the unrelenting heat of a Texas summer roses. I do need more than an hour. I like roses. Anyone who says try gardening, it's cheaper than therapy, has never met my garden. Story 15: The importance of cohabitation and marriage agreements, prenups, and steps you can take to make sure they are upheld in court Canada. I feel pretty confident as well in speaking about ways to effectively negotiate in family law, as well as how to co-parent effectively after separation. Story 16: Get ready for an extremely autistic breakdown of the art in the Pokemon TCG and why it's the perfect example of all the work that goes into designing the many things we encounter in our everyday lives that we take for granted. Women, be warned, you will walk out the driest you've been in your entire life. Story 17: The Sevens. The 7 questions you should ask yourself that will result in a more fulfilled life, better relationships, and higher levels of happiness. Wouldn't even take an hour. Story 18: The connection between trauma and incarceration. Such a broad topic that includes physiology and childhood trauma mixed with systemic inequality. Also, several modalities to help heal individuals or get them out of their flight, fight, freeze, fawn states so life feels livable again. Story 19: CPAPs. I set patients up on them, as well as many other in-home medical devices, and am expected to know the ins and outs of everything we put out. My setups are routinely an hour long, would be easy and informative. Story 20: Oh man, I'm 10K richer. I have high levels of knowledge in cooking, astrophysics, guitar, network engineering, cybersecurity, Led Zeppelin, pick your subject, and it'll bore you to tears. An hour is a rookie number. Story 21: The importance of STEM design and creative problem solving in education for all ages and demographics. with an emphasis on art as therapy for those suffering with mental health problems and terminal illnesses. Story 22, the many uses of mushrooms for health, for environmental remediation, for producing new types of materials, not to mention historical uses. Sign me up, brother, I'm ready. Story 23, landscaping, plant and tree selection for your home, including edibles and natives. I'm a horticulturist that focuses on residential and recreational areas. Story 24, how poisonous the food is in the U.S. and how the medical industry and food industry are tied together, keeping us sick so they can keep getting rich. The revolving door of bad food and doctor visits that's never ending. Story 25, how a person, if properly focused and motivated, can turn their life around in most every way by making a few crucial changes in their habits lifestyle. Story 26, why Amenhotep III did not introduce the Aten, a monotheistic deity of the late 18th dynasty, as it was a political device used by Akhenaten, son of Amenhotep III, to consolidate power. The Aten is not a prominent symbol under Amenhotep III, if anything. It's almost absent from all of his major temples. Family tree for some context: Amenhotep III, father of Akhenaten, father of King Tut. Story 27, affordable housing. Just getting into the basics of how it operates can take an hour, let alone going over income limits, and how many people who don't think they qualify actually make less than the upper limit to qualify. Story 28, floral industry. People would be amazed by how fast and how dynamic the floral industry is. It's got everything from your local farmer to international farmers, supply chains, market pricing and conditions. Combined with the splendor of modern scientific breeding, you can have 5 countries represented in one vase. Story 29, wellness, including self-care, safe partners, consent, and bystander intervention. This type of education was actually my job at a university, and I loved it. Project management, or the enterprise software I support, it would involve incoherent rambling, dad jokes, and old man stories. I've given those speeches. Story 30, fractals and fractal art. The wave model of emotions, the roles of curiosity and fear, an analysis of the Dungeon Crawler Carl book series, the brilliant design choices for Puzzle Pirates, and how it survived for 20 years, bizarre bugs from a decade of professional game testing. Weed wisdom, tips about getting high effectively and responsibly. I think I could do all 6 of those back to back and ID quadruple my income for the year. Story 31, welcome to the first session of our relationship course, where we dive headfirst into the most crucial skill in any relationship: effective, honest communication in relationships. Communication isn't just about avoiding awkward silences or passive-aggressive text messages. It's the foundation of every relationship. Without it, conflicts escalate, misunderstandings multiply, unjust expectations build, and any relationship would be doomed to fail. You can't build a dream house on a crumbling foundation, and you can't build a healthy relationship without knowing how to really talk to each other. Story 32, how banking has played both sides of CRA and used their footprint to exploit communities of color while the government rewards them for it. Every single neighborhood that has been gentrified and its residents displaced can be tied to disgusting relationships and paper-thin loans given to investors. Story 33, Social Security disability benefits for veterans. I'm a retired Social Security claim specialist, spouse, and VA caregiver of a combat Marine veteran. Story 34, only partly tongue-in-cheek here. I reconcile the whole political conflict about teaching in America by breaking out the fat crayons, a figurative term I learned in the military, not teaching to explain what actually happens in the classrooms regardless of the teacher's political ilk, and what can be done with only modest pay increases to attract and retain the best educators to our kids' and country's benefit. Story 35, my speech would be about misinformation, the tactics disinformation actors use to propagate it, and ways we can train ourselves to become resilient against spreading misinformation. Story 36, what it's like growing up with a closeted gay parent who has since come out and is married to a person of the same, but somehow still kind of closeted and also voted for Trump. Story 37, how to waste your life. Then I tell my whole life story of what I did in every situation I can remember and how it actually made things worse for me and everyone around me. Story 38, cheese. I've been talking with a client for almost 2 hours yesterday about the different cheeses, history of cheese, and how it's tied to our history, etc. Story 39, I would discuss the difference between a living wage and minimum wage and how that correlates with the amount of individuals on Medicaid through the Medicaid expansion. I would specifically discuss how many individuals remain unemployed so they can receive Medicaid benefits and receive unemployment. Individuals working at minimum wage. literally earn less than unemployment in some states with low minimum wages, are likely not receiving employer-provided health coverage, meaning they will be forced into the market. The health coverage costs, along with poor pay, results in a conundrum for them: use the system and remain unemployed, get unemployment benefits and Medicaid through the Medicaid expansion, or make less money by working minimum wage and paying for less comprehensive market healthcare prices. I wrote a 25-page paper on this topic during my master's. Story 40 for me: nothing. I would decline, run away, and later post about it on the internet, while still avoiding the answer to the original question in the first place. Story 41: Business Contract Negotiations 101, with a deep dive into IT-specific trends to consider when negotiating. Game on. I love presenting in front of a crowd. Story 42: Anyone who can't do so for World War II need to study up on why we are where we are today. You can't understand modern society without understanding World War II, and World War II covers so many topics. There's something of interest to just about everyone. Interested in film: John Ford was at the Battle of Midway, filmed the actual battle, and was wounded. Interested in fine art: artists developed paint schemes to confuse enemy intelligence and constructed fake towns, even replicating one harbor's lights IRC in Libya, so that when the town turned off its lights, the replicated lights got bombed by a Nazi nighttime bombing raid. Interested in food: the U.S. had an ice cream manufacturing barge in the Pacific, sending ice cream to the front for soldiers and Marines. It was one leader's idea to make up for the end of the whiskey ration. The Army quickly had ice cream manufacturing set up in Europe to push ice cream to the soldiers there. It led to the formation of Israel. It led to the Cold War. It affects every aspect of life. Story 43: How bad electric vehicles are, and how they have no chance of becoming a viable replacement to the ICE in any of our lifetimes without an incredible boost to technology and use of different materials. Story 44: I could easily do an hour on a couple of different fantasy series with no prep time, Tolkien and Sanderson being the ones I'd be most comfortable speaking about. Story 45: Fantasy Baseball. Had a solid group of us that were in on this, basically on the ground floor. It would be pretty easy to discuss the rules, variants, and evolution of it off the cuff for over an hour.